any questions at this point about possible signs or maybe things that you've seen your children do?
You just had on the previous slide about extending curfew and not being able to give good reasons. I haven't had that specific request yet, but a lot of times it's, can you tell me why you don't want to do this or that? And I get nothing. So what piece of executive functioning is that coming from?
Well, I mean, it's kind of a combination. None of these pieces work independently, right?
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of a mixture, but it's you want a reason. I may consider this if you have a valid reason, but they don't have the reason because they can't initiate a lot of times. Even if they do initiate, they can't resolve a plan. So like, I'm going to do this and this and this and this. And it's also the emotional control. When you get to adolescence, there's all the hormonal changes and, you know, well, my friend's doing it, you know, why can't I? You never let me do this or do that, you know. So there are a lot of components that come into it, but I think, you know, that rigidity too and thought comes into it. It's just like, I'm willing to listen to you and consider the thing that you want, but you need to give me very valid reasons. And if maybe I don't see eye to eye, can we be flexible and kind of come up with a plan that works for both of us? So maybe I'll let you go to that basketball game, but you're not gonna go get pizza with your friends afterwards. You know, I'll pick you up right from the game. So those are the kinds of things that you probably will start to see as your daughter continues to get older. But yeah, I think that's a big one, is they're kind of pushing, and part of that's just natural, you know, as a teen and an adolescent. I mean,
but I also think helping them come up, because if you say you need to give me 3 reasons, you know, that they can't. So maybe you have to sit down together and be like, okay, let's write it out. Because I do that with some of the kids here. I'm like, well, let's talk about it, you know, and we write out why, because sometimes it kind of helps them with processing, you know, if they're saying it, and then we put it on paper.
And sometimes even just that process of like, let's think about your reasoning, even if she is or he is able to give you their reason, like, all my friends are going, well, okay.
That's one reason.
Yeah, that's one reason. Let's come up with another reason, you know, like, why are all of your friends going? Why do you think it's important for you to be part of that, you know, and kind of talk through it that way, just expand on the idea. Sometimes they don't even really know, they just want to be part of a group. They just want to be part of something, yeah, or their perception, is everybody's doing it. Right.
Well, now, what we were going to go through are just some strategies that can help get them more organized and, you know, stay on task and, you know, just help in all the areas. So one area is auditory cues. So you may use alarms or setting alarms to change the activity, or, you know, giving them, you know, oh, well, you have 5 more minutes, or you have 5 minutes to go get ready for the day. Go up, brush your teeth, wash your face, come down, get your shoes on. Or even if they're a slow eater, okay, I'm gonna, you know, we're gonna set the timer, you have 10 minutes to eat, you know, just to kind of keep them moving along. Or even with doing homework, because if they're like, oh, I don't want to do my homework, okay, well, let's work on this for 15 minutes, you know, and you set the time, and then you see where you are when that timer goes off. And then, you know, they could go do something else and then come back to it. So that could help. I mean, and there's now, with all the technology, as they get older, there's, you know, all the watches that you could set alarms and program for them, or to give them like a little vibration, you know, even to just stay on task. I mean, I know I have, if I'm sitting too long, my watch is dinging me to stand up. So, and that could be helpful, you know, to kind of keep them focused for what they need to do. Also, I put like music, like if they're learning a topic in school and they can't get all the facts straight, you know, putting it to music can help them organize. I know if there's anything they're learning, like say they have to know the capitals with all the states, there's a lot of songs out there that can kind of get the pattern and rhythm going. And I mean, there's music videos for everything, because even my own kids use it like for science facts. So there's a lot of good music things out there. And like I said, using sound to signify a transition, like the end and start a new task. So then, just always clearly stating directions. And so if you're giving them, say, 3 directions, it may be helpful, you have to keep your language simple, even have them repeat the direction, repeat the steps after you say them, so if they can state it, then, that helps them to get it in their mind. And then even like in the classroom, and I know they're good about it here, but even if the teacher is saying it, also have the visual on the board or on their desk, just so that they can follow and see what needs to be completed. It might be like step 1, you're gonna do this, and then have them, kind of count out and repeat it. And even, sometimes in my sessions, I'll even have them like list out and for them to write the steps like in their own words, and then we do it. So it's helpful. We can use a lot of visual cues. So you can use the visual schedules, in the classroom or at home. And like at home, if you need to outline, okay, these are all the steps that we take that you need to get ready, and maybe have a little checklist, in the bathroom, and that they can go through the steps, or in their bedroom before bed. Okay, this is what I need to do, and list it out. Nicole and I did, in our last social group, we talked a lot about organization. So we gave everybody these little tags to put on their backpack, and it's a little checklist. So it's to get ready when you go to school, and then when you go home. So it's like all the things you might need, like your homework folder, your books for homework, lunchbox, water bottle, snack, forms from the teacher. So they can have this on there and be like, oh, okay, yes, I have all these things, just to make them more independent, getting everything ready. And just having calendars, I know that they have a lot that they use here, but and at home too, so that they know the routine, and if there's gonna be a change, they can be prepped maybe a week ahead. And also like mnemonic devices to remember important information. So more like if they have, certain order or list of facts they need to remember, maybe making up a word that, that they can remember, and each letter stands, like Roy G. Biv for the colors of the rainbow, something, just could help them remember the facts. And then some organizational tools, like I said, checklists. Maybe at home you have a daily or a weekly chore list. We talked about the backpack checklist. But based on your child's age and the grade of school, it will vary. When they're younger, it's probably you're helping to make the organizational lists. But as they get older, we want them to shift and start to be able to work on organizing themselves. So, does anyone have any questions? What? Yes, I have to go. I'm sorry. So Nicole,
I'll take over the rest. So, like I said, we could talk about executive functioning for days on end, and so I feel like this is very much just kind of a first step, almost like introduction into executive functioning. But at this point, I kind of want to open up the table to you guys to say, like, what questions do you have? And I will do my best to answer. And if there's particular situations, then we can always connect kind of one-on-one outside of here and discuss those things as well. I'd be more than happy to do that. Sometimes it takes a little teasing out and problem solving, like, okay, well, tell me what's happening here and what's happening there. But any questions or thoughts, anything that comes to mind?
Do you have any, like, these all sound fantastic, do you in particular have any like great resources or favorite books or favorite websites that can really just, all of this sounds so familiar, but for me, myself, I feel like I need a constant kind of reminder of all of this.
Right.
And I was just wondering if you found things that have been great for parents.
There's I mean, in this world, there's so much out there now, you know what I mean? And sometimes it almost becomes overwhelming just by all the information
Yeah,
you
like the
can
right
find, right? And you're like, okay, I don't even know where to start now, and I think sometimes just even organizing that information so that it makes sense for you, like, okay, yeah, I get this, but now what, right? One website that I do like is understood.org. That, they have a lot of really great information on there. Now, that being said, it's pretty, it's to the point, you know what I mean? It's like, here's what it is, it kind of defines things for you. But they do have some areas on that site that actually do give you suggestions and strategies, ways to kind of correct these issues, if you will. Probably what needs to be done, honestly, as a parent, is kind of thinking through this list that we've defined here for you, even maybe go like definition by definition, and kind of just reflect on yourselves, kind of to figure out like, who am I in the world of executive function? Like, we all have strengths and weaknesses. None of us have mastered all of this, and that's okay, because we're all functional, we all get through life. But it's like, where are my strengths and where are my weaknesses? And then think about your children. And they may look very different than you know, their strengths and their weaknesses. And sometimes that disconnect where like, maybe you're really organized and your child is completely disorganized, well, that can cause a rift in your home, right? It's like, why can't you just put your shoes in your coat back where I told you? You know, and they're like, I don't know, you know? And so I think even just having that ability to kind of reflect on who you are and then who they are and kind of how those two things come together, I think can be very enlightening. And kind of in those moments, it doesn't mean that you still don't want them to be organized, but in those moments where their stuff is everywhere, you can kind of take a deep breath and go, okay, you know, I know I'm at this end of the spectrum and they're at that end of the spectrum, so we need to kind of find somewhere in the middle to meet. So that would be kind of my first suggestion, but I can definitely send, you know, if anybody's interested, I can definitely send a link or a few links and different resources. I find nowadays there's just as good information online as there is in books. I mean, I love a book, don't get me wrong, I love picking up a book, but at the same time, I don't always have time to sit and read a 10 or 13 chapter book, you know, front to back. If you can go online and kind of find those clear-cut resources, I think those are a little better at this stage, because we're all going 100 directions at once. So if you want, actually, I'll just leave this up here. If you just want to like write your name and your email, then you can do that, and I'll be more than happy to send you guys some links and some resources. So
Or you can send them to me, I have everyone's on the, who registered, and I
there
can
you go.
just shoot it
That's
out.
what I'll do then. I'll do that. I'll send it to you, Portia.
I don't know, I find like, being able to listen to it in the car, since you have so much car time,
Like a
Podcast.
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 that's what I was trying to
Great.
get, a podcast, but even, books, I guess CD,
Mhm.
you can download it, via Bluetooth in the car.
Yeah.
I find that helps a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't done it in a while, but, I don't know.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great
I
idea.
tend to get it in, like if I have to read it at home and it's.
It's like one more thing.
And it's real technical,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna read it
Yeah.
much, because I just can't, I don't know.
I got a whole shelf in my closet.
It's just, I don't know what it is about it's a lot to consume.
Yeah.
You listen
And
to it.
especially at the end of the day, you're already tired, and it's like,
It's not what I wanna read.
yeah, yeah, right.
Are there podcasts?
There's definitely podcasts out there, yeah, for sure. The other thing, and this is not so much to educate you on executive functioning, but another thing that I would just encourage, that made me think of this when you said about the podcast listening in the car, is doing some like mindfulness stuff for your child and for you. And what I mean by that is just kind of having those moments of not necessarily true meditation, but just kind of being in the moment and just kind of thinking. And there's tons of things, I don't know who has like Alexa at home or Google, or, you know, there's all those smart devices that a lot of people have now, but you can even just use your phone and you can say, Alexa, play me a 10-minute mindfulness meditation, and she'll come on and she'll talk you, like they'll talk you through 10 minutes, and it's just like, okay, let's take a deep breath, let's close our eyes. And even just kind of that centering for our children, I think can be so beneficial, not only for them, but for us too. You know, they kind of become grounded and kind of allows you guys to start off on a good foot, maybe after school or, you know, on the way to school. This is kind of a side note to that, but I think using that time in the car would be a great time to do that kind of stuff. I think mindfulness, especially in this day and age, is so important, and I think it's so important for our health, you know, our brain health, our mind health. So I think that would be a very great thing to implement and support the executive functioning piece.
Nicole, what about resources for helping our children to understand what their executive
Yeah.
functioning issues are? Because explaining that to a 16-year-old's gotta be very different than to a second grader.
Right, or to a 30-year-old. Right, exactly. And so there are resources, let me just jot this down to you. I can include in the resource list. So there are some really nice workbooks for teens and adolescents, but also the younger child. And it really walks them through like different scenarios and just makes them kind of reflect on themselves. And so I can definitely share some of those with you too. Just let me jot this down so I don't forget.
Because, you know, long-term self-advocacy about one's executive function
Yeah.
is what my goal is for my child.
Oh, definitely, definitely. And you want them to be able to go out in the world and be successful and be able to carry on a productive life, right? And so we all know our limitations and our strengths, and if you don't, then that's where you run into problems, you know, and we all know adults that maybe haven't identified those strengths and weaknesses, and those are often the people that you kind of shy away from, because it's like, I don't want to be around that attitude or, you know, whatever it might be. So I do think that's really important to start instilling that at a very early age. So, other questions or thoughts?
Just, you know, a lot of this obviously is kind of comorbid with other conditions.
Yep.
And I guess that's what I kinda am having a hard time, in my own opinion, differentiating the symptoms from, say, ADHD.
Yeah. Or
And kind of
SPD or,
figuring
yeah.
out, like, how do you, I mean,
Mhm.
how do you treat each symptom?
Right.
And, you know, can you treat it one way or the other, or is it a combined effort, you know?
Right, I mean, I think when you kind of get into those comorbidities, it is
Right.
challenging, because you're like, wait, is this or is this?
Right, is it due to this or is it due to this?
Right.
Which one is causing it?
Right, what's what?
Mhm.
And so, as a parent, we kind of throw the kitchen sink at them, right? It's like, let's just do everything
Everything.
and hope something sticks,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Which is good in a way, because now, you know, at least you're kind of getting all these different things into their world and supporting them. But I do think it can be challenging to kind of figure out, like, okay.
Then you don't know what worked though,
Mhm.
because.
But one thing I will say, yeah, exactly, like, what's my baseline?
Yeah, exactly.
One thing I will say, if you look at the research for ADD and ADHD, executive functioning is the core of what's going on there.
There, okay.
And so, when you have a child that's experiencing ADD and ADHD, they are very much experiencing deficits in executive function.
Okay.
It may not be the full gamut, they are gonna still have some strengths in there too, but they may be struggling to a degree that's much more intense than some other individuals. So yeah, in that particular, I would think of them almost as one.
Okay.
You know, executive functioning is a component of ADHD, and
Okay.
so when you're addressing ADHD, you should be addressing
Addressing
the
executive.
executive functioning.
Okay.
Yeah, and some other things.
My
but-
daughter-
Yeah.
My neurologist had a great diagram for it, had a picture of the brain, and she said, you know, because my daughter's is inattentive form, not hyperactive or whatever. She said, people think of that as being like she's always distractible. No, if she's on something she loves,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
cannot distract
It's
her from
hyper-focus,
it.
yep.
It's hyper-focus.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to get her to do something that she really is not interested in, that's when she's gonna be
Yep.
very
Yeah.
distracted.
Yeah.
So
And
it's
that's-
it's that
yeah.
inhibition and task complete, all that.
Shift, flexibility
Oh, yes.
in
Yeah.
thought,
Yeah.
initiation, planning, you know, like I love doing something, we all have things we love to do, I love doing this, but I also know that there are other things in life that I have to do. You know what I mean? If I can sit and watch, for me, Food Network, if I could sit and watch Food Network all day, I could do that, but guess what? I have to do the laundry, I have to vacuum, I have to go to the grocery store, whatever it is. And I have to be able to say, okay, Nicole, enough Food Network. Let's go and do these other things, you know, so that shift in flexibility. Yeah.
All right, one final question.
I'm sitting there thinking the same thing about myself.
We all have those things, but we're functional. We're functional. We get through
It's
life.
called
you know?
adulting, right?
Yes, it is. It's called adulting. It's our guilty pleasures come into play here and there, but we eventually move on, so.
Does anyone have one final question for Nicole before we wrap up?
Well, I will be sure to send out all of this information to Portia, and she can, you know, give it to you all. But I will also include in there both Carrie and my contact information, so you guys could reach out to us anytime. I will let you know, both of us are very good at responding via email. Phone is a little more challenging, but emails are great. So if there's questions that come up, feel free, you know, or even if you find a resource and, you know, want to share it with all of us, I think that would be great too, because I'm always trying to kind of increase that. But I've really enjoyed talking to you guys, and like I said, I wish we had more time, but maybe we could do this again. And
Yeah,
kind of
thank you.
delve in a little deeper, so, yeah.
Good, thank you. If you wouldn't mind filling out the evaluation, please, and leaving that with me. I just wanna let everyone know that the next speaker series coming up is February 22nd, and it is on sensory processing issues and how they affect learning. So this one could be really good if anyone wants a flyer. Megan Bevington is doing that one. She's from Child and Family Development.
Straight from glasses.